Last week you heard me mention that there was a bit of a ski jump at the end of the fingerboard owing to a less than perfect neck angle. Now ordinarily this would not be a problem, it would just form part of the relief curve that all guitars need. And acoustic bass guitars especially need to have about medium action so that the strings can work hard enough to operate the box. The customer has, however, requested low action. So what I'm going to do is attempt to take off a little bit of the wedge at the end of the fingerboard so that if they take the guitar to a guitar tech with experience of acoustic guitars, they will be able to lower the action without running foul of this part. For that purpose I've made myself a mini radiused sanding block. And so I'm just, and I've masked off the soundboard that we've so painstakingly finished. And I'm just going to try and knock off about 0.5 millimetre up at this end. Now I'm blending in what I've done, using a ruler to find the high spots. I'm also taking care to measure at various spots across the fingerboard. I'm looking for light underneath the ruler. That is now very, very close to perfect at all positions across the fretboard. So I'll grab some finer sandpaper and make it as smooth as it was before. And ever so carefully restoring the very slight round over so that the edge of the fretboard is not sharp. And yes, I've got to do this to both guitars. My tuner's died, new battery and all. Before I string the other one up and we have a proper comparison between the two, I'd like to see how different these two new builds are from build number 1, the very first guitar I ever made. The sort of honky high harmonic on the low notes is missing from this new guitar, which is good. I think it's probably due to the thinner soundboard and having the soundboard made from hue and pine rather than celery top. This fairly ugly blemish is where I sanded the sides too aggressively and actually cut through the first layer of the lamination. Now there are no structural problems. I've reinforced the sides from behind at this spot. Here is some binding channel tear out on the soundboard where I had already glued in some bindings, but I was not satisfied, so I had to remove them and start again. The router was just a bit too aggressive and it tore out some of the soundboard. There was also some binding channel tear out near the tail. Here is a natural grain feature that required some filler. Unfortunately, I chose the wrong colour. While routing the bindings channels, I did a couple of steps out of order, leading to a router guide problem at the heel cap. These are the first guitars where I have used spotted gum for the fingerboard, and it is a lighter coloured timber, and my technique for the fingerboard neck transition when French polishing now allows some shellac stains to show on the sides of the fingerboard. This was not a problem when I used a darker coloured timber, so I'm going to have to investigate what I should do about it. The side marker octave dots are not perfectly aligned with each other. They're in the right position, they just slope a bit. The M logo on the headstock is a little bit browner than I'd intended because some small voids in the resin have been filled by shellac rather than superglue. A minor scratch on the headstock, which I did while stringing up. Moving on to serial number 11. While doing the bindings, a section in the cutaway became damaged and needed to be replaced, and the join lines are pretty clearly visible. I had a bit of a sanding disaster at the neck cutaway transition. You can feel the floor as a very slight dip as you run your fingers up the neck across the junction. And you can see that there are some sections where the shellac is thicker and therefore darker. While gluing on the heel cap at the cutaway transition, there was a little bit of misalignment and I had to use some filler, and you can see it. There is a small filled gap in the bindings where they join on the soundboard near the tail. As with the previous guitar, I had a mishap routing the bindings channels due to doing a couple of steps out of order, and there is an intrusion into the back. Likewise, as with the first guitar, the neck fingerboard transition is imperfect due to shellac staining on the lighter fingerboard timber. And another minor scratch on the headstock while I was stringing it up. Serial number 10 has what I would describe as medium-low action and is what I would recommend for an acoustic fretless bass. You saw me dial it in the previous video, and in the sound examples you're about to hear, you'll hear that most of the notes are nice and clean and strong. That should not be the basis of any decision between the two guitars, however. Both necks are straight, and it is very easy for either myself or any guitar tech with acoustic experience to lower the action at either the nut or the saddle. For serial number 11, I did a bit of an experiment and took the action pretty much as low as I thought it possibly could be taken, both at the nut and at the bridge. Whereas serial number 10 goes from about 4 to about 3, this goes from just over 3 to about 2.6. In the examples that you'll hear, there'll be a lot more smacking noise and a little bit of buzz. Now, partly that is my technique, but partly it's because this thing is about as low as it can go.